Hello and welcome back to the Death Row and Executions channel. My name is Paco Rivera and I do presentations on executions happening soon, including a story on what got the death row inmate sentenced to death. You can also follow me on Facebook for updates and more death row news. There will be a link to my Facebook in the description below. Also, check out my other channel here on YouTube called The Maximum Sentence, where I cover recent crimes and convictions. There will be a link for that also. On January 29th of this year, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis has already signed the third death warrant of 2026, and that execution is scheduled to take place 7 days after another execution in that state. So it's looking like Mr. DeSantis is going to keep me very busy again this year. The second execution in Florida is Melvin Trotter. I did a video on that case that appeared on this channel last week. An execution scheduled for Tuesday, February 24th. After Trotter, scheduled for March 3rd, will be Billy Leon Kearse. Like I said, 7 days later. Billy Kearse, who is now 53 years old, is set to die for a crime that he committed in 1991 when he was 18 years old. He had just turned 18 2 months earlier. In January of 1991, Kearse murdered a Fort Pierce, Florida police officer, Sergeant Thomas Parrish, who was 29 years old. Sergeant Danny Parrish had attended Fort Pierce Central High School and graduated in 1980. He later served 3 years in the United States Navy, and that was followed by serving with Florida's National Guard. He then joined the Fort Pierce Police Force and became a full-time road patrol officer in 1988, about 3 years before his death. Fort Pierce is located in St. Lucie County, about an hour's drive north from West Palm Beach, near the Atlantic Ocean. On January 18th, 1991, in Fort Pierce, Florida, Sergeant Parrish was on patrol in his unit when he spotted a car going the wrong way on a one-way street. It was later learned that that car was being driven by 18-year-old Billy Leon Kearse, who was also on probation after being released from prison 1 month earlier. Kearse had a female passenger in the car with him named Rhonda Pendleton. They had just picked up a pizza and they were headed back to Rhonda's home. Sergeant Parrish proceeded to pull the car over for going the wrong way on that one-way street. As regular protocol, before stepping out of his patrol unit, Sergeant Parrish radioed in the license plate number to the dispatcher. Sergeant Parrish approached the driver, Billy Kearse, and requested to see his driver's license. But Kearse said he didn't have it on him. So the officer said something to the effect of, "Okay, then just tell me your name and birth date and I'll look it up." So Billy Kearse gave Sergeant Parrish a fake name and birth date. According to the reports, the officer had made several trips from his patrol unit back to the car that he had pulled over because the name and birth date wasn't matching anything in the database. Kearse was giving the officer each time another fake name and birth date. Finally, the officer told Kearse that if he doesn't provide his real name and birth date, that he's going to have to arrest him. Well, Kearse wouldn't give his real name, and his time was up. He was ordered to get out of the car. As the officer was trying to place handcuffs on Kearse, Kearse spun around quickly and got into a violent struggle with Parrish. During the struggle, Kearse was able to snatch Sergeant Pierce's service revolver from his holster, and he fired one shot at the officer, causing Parrish to step back. Now, if I got the story right from the case files, it appears that that first shot missed. And that's when Kearse appears to have paused for a moment. It was like he was thinking about what he should do next. That's when Sergeant Parrish then began pleading for his life by saying, "Come on, man, don't do it. Don't do it." Kearse then fired the weapon at Parrish 13 more times. 9 shots had penetrated the body of Danny Parrish. Only 4 bullets had hit his bulletproof vest. After shooting that gun a total of 14 times, Kearse got back in his car and drove away, leaving Sergeant Parrish on the ground to die. There was a taxi nearby, and the taxi driver had witnessed the shooting, and he notified police. The taxi driver also gave a description of the killer and the dark blue 1979 Monte Carlo that the man was driving, and that there was a woman in the car with him. Barely alive, Sergeant Parrish was transported to a hospital where he did succumb to his injuries, the wounds from the shooting, and he was pronounced dead at the hospital. Now, these images of the actual crime scene appears to be on a two-way street. Remember, Kearse was pulled over for going the wrong way on a one-way street, so my guess is that the officer caught up to Kearse later after he was on this other road. As I said, Billy Kearse had gotten back in his car after the shooting and drove away, and he and the female passenger with him went to his home. Once there, Kearse flattened all the tires on his car. This is something I don't understand. Maybe somebody can explain it to me. When he was later asked why he flattened all the tires on his car, his response was, and I quote, "to keep the police off me." So if police see the car, they might say, well, it couldn't have been him because that car has 4 flat tires. Or is there another reason why he did that? Billy Kearse then placed 2 live rounds from the police officer's gun in his pocket. That's kind of strange. And then he went to his backyard and he buried the gun in the yard. Yeah, he's only 18 years old, the brain not fully developed enough to know that's not going to work. Anyway, investigators, following leads from the taxi driver and reports of the license plate number that was called in by Sergeant Parrish before he was killed, officers went to the home of the registered owner of the car, the home where Billy Kearse was living, and they found him there, along with his blue car with 4 flat tires. He was placed in handcuffed and he was searched. And get this, they found in one of his pockets 2 live rounds, matching the rounds from the service weapon belonging to Sergeant Danny Parrish. Now, here's another question. Why did he keep those 2 rounds, which I'm guessing was removed from the gun, in his pocket? Crime scene technicians did a full search of the property, believing the gun was probably nearby, and they found Sergeant Parrish's gun buried in the backyard. Billy Kearse would later give a full confession, but he tried to downplay his actions by saying that all the shots that he fired happened while both men were fighting with each other and during the struggle. It was later determined that that was completely false, as Sergeant Parrish was defenseless and begging for his life right before Kearse shot him 13 times. Kearse would also say that he was on probation at the time and he didn't know if there was a warrant for his arrest for violating his probation, and that is the reason why he was lying about his name, and that is the reason why he shot the officer. As it turned out, there is no report about Billy Kearse being looked for actively by authorities and no record of him having violated his probation. 2 days later, on January 20, 1991, Kearse was formally charged with first-degree murder of a law enforcement officer, and 9 months later, in October of 1991, Kearse went to trial, a trial that took place in Vero Beach, Florida. Billy Kearse was found guilty, and a month later, he was sentenced to death. A few years later, Kearse's attorneys were successful with an appeal, and in 1995, the Florida Supreme Court threw out his death sentence and ordered a new sentencing hearing. That happened in 1997. And he was sentenced to death again. Sergeant Danny Parrish's services was attended by members of law enforcement from around the country, and even the governor of Florida at the time, Lawton Chiles, was present. I did a lot of research on this, and I was unable to find any mention anywhere if the female passenger with Billy Kearse was ever charged with any crime. And because there was no mention of that, I'm inclined to believe that she was not charged with anything. Please go ahead and hit the subscribe button for more death row and upcoming execution stories so that you're alerted when the next one comes out. You can also follow me on Facebook for updates and more death row news. There will be a link to my Facebook in the description below. My name is Paco Rivera. Thank you for watching. Take care and bye for now.